If you're listening to this, there's a good chance you work within the real estate investing industry. There's another good chance that you would like to increase the sales of your products or services. Well, you're in the right place. United States Real Estate Investor is a platform you need to place your brand directly in front of your target audience. With our focused, growing audience of real estate investing beginners, enthusiasts, and seasoned professionals, you can continually reach our captivated viewers and listeners with ease. To learn more or to get started today, just visit UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. That's UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com/advertising. Get ready to increase your brand awareness and your bottom line. Attract clients with content.
Even though investing in yourself has proven to be the best strategy for building wealth for you and your family, it's not always so easy to find your tribe along your personal journey. In the world of business, it can sometimes feel daunting to seemingly always be in the good old boys club, where you may or may not be taken seriously. Well, now, real estate investing isn't just for the guys anymore. With real conversations about strategy, business relationships, actionable steps, financial goals, and more, you've just found your tribe. Welcome to United States Women in Real Estate Investing.
United States Women in Real Estate Investing, coming April 1st.
Universe. Media. Network. 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 Network.
Welcome to This Month in Real Estate Investing, where we separate the noise out of the news. I'm your host, James Brown, and I show people how they can make safe, secure returns through our pre-vetted passive investments. Feel free to download our ebook, The Astute Investor, the top 10 mistakes investors make and how to avoid them, or join our private investor club so you can get exclusive opportunity alerts that we don't advertise to the general public generally. Just go to acceleratemycapital.com. In this episode, we'll be breaking down a variety of real estate investing news, including Trump's Canadian tariffs, U.S. real estate faces nightmare foreclosure crisis, and real estate world fighting over secret listings. And don't forget, if you're watching live on YouTube, you can share your thoughts and questions during the show, and then we can comment back. Let's start the show. All right, our guests today are, two of them are missing. I'm not going to even mention their name. They're on my blacklist. but we've got Mischa. I'm not going to attempt to say your last name. I'll let you do that. Why don't you, I know you just put Z in there, but yeah, tell us about your background in investing, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, great. Mischa. The last name is Zvegintzov. It's you pronounce it exactly how it's spelled. Yeah, of course I haven't put the spelling in there, but it's a Russian name. I grew up in Wyoming. That is a whole nother story. We'll save that for another day. But my experience in real estate investing is that I was a home loan officer, super successful home loan officer from 2001 until about 2016, and did very well. Had a team and built a team, funded about $1.5 billion in home loans. That's a lot of home loans. Wow. A lot of units, and have owned properties over the years. And now I just have kind of a kick. My current investment portfolio is I'm about 5 minutes from the Pacific Ocean in Encinitas, California, this kick-ass little beach house. Sorry if I swore there, but there you go.
Go for it.
Short but sweet, yeah. But these days, I'm all about taking all that old school marketing and sales skills that I had in the home loan business and bringing that to the new world of digital marketing. But there you go. In 30 seconds, that's it.
All right, cool. Encinitas, yeah, that's beautiful down there.
Yeah, stop roughing it in Encinitas.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna jump into the news here. So, I think you and I can hold this together with just two of us, like most podcasts that are just one-on-one. But since this is a unique format, we go through the news and dissect it. But
we're both smart, charming individuals. We're gonna crush this Saturday. Let's do it. Let's go.
Got the coffee with the mug my mom got me.
I mean,
Alaska mug.
Right?
I'm excited.
A little bit of a pivot, a little bit of a wait. There's not two other people to buffer us, but let's do it. Let's go. Let's crush it.
Cool. All right. From Illinois policy, Illinois property taxes number 2, double national average in 2025. Mischa, did you have a chance to read through these or read the summaries at least?
I did. I see that. Yes, some of them I did indeed. My initial thought is, well, my property tax bill myself literally is $13,000 or $14,000 a year. So if people complain too much, I'm like, yeah, well, I guess it's kind of expensive to own a house sometimes.
Yeah. I was saying average. I guess national average is $6,285. No. Hold on. That's what they're paying. Over double the national average of $2,969. So that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, and they have a 2.7% property tax rate. That means if you have $1 million house, you're paying $20,070 a year in property taxes. Quick math for anybody watching, listening, who's like, well, what's that mean? 2.7%. Well, yeah, it's crazy. I'm assuming most people watching, listening right now own a house, but I think people are shocked that don't own or don't have rentals, that they will calculate a loan payment and they go, oh yeah, I can afford a house. And then it's like, yeah, well, there's this thing called property taxes and that can be expensive. Good news is we can write a chunk of that off on our taxes, of course. I don't exactly inject the conversation here, but
no.
Yeah. And I'd also say, for like Encinitas, for so many municipalities, property tax revenue really pays for a lot of stuff. So I think it's a great shocking headline to be like, oh, it's so expensive. But it's like, yeah, well, man, these municipalities need to drive revenue somewhere. So I guess the key question is, what are they getting for the 2% tax rate, right? Do their roads suck or are their schools good?
Right. Yeah. It makes me wonder. I always picture Midwest being, lower tax probably, or at least lower prices, but I hadn't really thought about the tax side and knowing taxes on the coasts are very expensive. Because I've known people from both coasts come here. They're like, wow, here in Denver where I am.
Yeah.
Like your taxes are so low. They're going up. I don't know.
What is the property tax rate? I'm sorry to interrupt you.
I don't even know what the number is. But I remember paying back when I had like a, $400,000 house. $1,800. Something like that. Yeah. It wasn't a big stinger.
0.5% or something like that. Yeah, that's
I
not
didn't
bad.
know. I didn't know we were gonna have math involved.
Yeah. Well, California, 1.25% generally speaking, and then the municipalities or the counties and things, will have additional taxes over and above that. A lot of times you'll see in California anyway, as we had this explosive growth in the early to mid 2000s, we had what were called Melrose taxes. Literally, it was like two senators, Mello and Ruse. But what they started doing is when you would have this urban growth, they needed to finance the local schools, things like that. So they would have Melrose tax. So then you go from 1.25% to 2% really quick. Those are things. What was I going to say? I think, what the bigger news might be that Trump capped the tax write-offs his first term there at $10,000 on property taxes, which was kind of a bummer because it was like, oh no, right? Isn't that what he did? Some bitch, sorry.
Let's see. I just looked up to Colorado's is at 0.49.
0.49, yeah, that's practically free, it feels like to me. I'm like, 0.49, what? That's incredible. Yeah, you could have $100,000 house if you could find one, and be paying $500 in taxes? Sign me up. Yeah,
that's low. Now, that's probably about the only thing that's low and affordable in Denver. But
what's a house costing in Denver these days? I mean, quality of life in Denver is pretty good. You have all those ski areas locally, and go ahead.
Yeah, we got a lot of good stuff going on here. That's why I moved here. But median depends on where you are, but it's in the 600s.
Yeah.
Yep. So
affordable
compared to California. That's why we get a lot of Californians and East Coasters coming here because they can buy $1 million house or a 600 and be like, woo!
I did my time. I grew up in Jackson, Wyoming, which is freaking cold. I mean, Denver can be cold. I don't know. Does snow stick on the ground in Denver for a long time, or is it like snows and melts real quick?
It melts a couple days usually. Very rarely will it stick around. Maybe in shadows for a week or so, but
you just got to deal with the high elevation, but beautiful. But I used to ski, snowboard, all that, so I know the Denver, Colorado area. That's amazing skiing and all that. But not to get sidetracked. My point is, I did my time in the cold. I have no desire to do that. You could be like, you get lower taxes, but I'm like, it's 70 degrees right now where I am. I can see the ocean.
Anyway. I can see that. Yeah. Well, let's go to the next one from United States real estate investor. Trump's Canadian tariffs. Will the U.S. real estate market survive? So they're talking about, this is a hot topic. Oh my goodness. In the article, they're talking about the majority of our lumber, steel, energy, even prefab homes, because we're talking about the real estate side of this, come from Canada. So you think affordability is bad now? If they jack those prices up, we're going to have a problem,
Yeah. It's interesting that, Trump has his demographic, and good, bad, and different. I could really care less, but that those tariffs will hit his demographic the hardest. Like they're the ones that are going to pay the price, assuming we see that follow through of higher prices, and it totally makes sense. I think too, the other shocking thing is I think of America as being such a resource rich country. Like that's one of the things that allows us to be the power that we are. So you've got this incredible resources in this country, and we're in the perfect temperature band, generally speaking, right? But that how much stuff we import is crazy. It shocks me sometimes. So on one hand, I'm like, it's scary that it'll drive prices up perhaps, but at the same time, it's like, well, maybe we should learn how to leverage better what we have locally. I don't know, locally being within the U.S. Yeah.
It's tricky, we're such a consumption society that, even if we do have the resources, say we're talking raw minerals, how do we get it out of the ground and process it with what we pay people right? Like it's just the math doesn't work out, right? So
Yeah, it's such a funky time. I think that that's the funnest thing about Trump, love him or hate him, is that he shines a light on lots of issues that we have. And whether he's solving them or making them worse, it's like he's shining a light on them. And it's like, oh my gosh, like,
yes,
we do have some issues here. What's going to be the result? So again, I'm kind of lucky. So I can say these things flippantly because I've had some success over my life, and I live coastal California, and so I own my home, so it's those kind of shocks to the system don't affect me personally so much, so I can speak flippantly about it. But the reality is maybe you're a young person trying to get on your feet or build your family or get your first house or do these things, and it's like, man, it's hard as it is, and now prices are going to go up even more and make it that much harder. And yeah, man, it's like cost per square foot to build a house is going up, and lumber is a big part of it. So yeah, it'd be interesting how it shakes out. What are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, ditto. I mean, and I was reading an article there too. It was talking about billions of Canadian investments in the US is a big factor. Like if they're like, this is not a good investment, they're going to back out and pull that billions out of our economy.
Yeah.
And that could be also another big problem.
Yeah. Someone just put a note in there, printed concrete tiny homes. Have you seen those? It's like,
I have.
It's so cool.
I was just talking to some guys about it. They were showing me some videos of it. It's so cool. I mean, they can make whatever shape you want and quickly.
Yeah.
It's just, and bomber, right? Like there's a lot of, oh God, did you see the news in Myanmar?
No.
Like these high rises just collapsing. Like they're talking.
Oh yeah, I did see that. Yeah.
100,000 people may have died, it's an earthquake. It was weird. I was watching a video and it was like, it looked like water pouring out the top of this one building. Like, did the pipes break? But like, how could that much water come out?
Yeah. I guess the earthquake was the size too, where it was felt 800 miles away. Like Thailand felt it. Like
it was a rooftop pool. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I was wondering. But it makes me think, like I know a gal that has a company where she'll go into like these third world countries that just, they don't have any good building standards. And she'll teach them how to rebuild after, like she's gone into Haiti and things like that, where, hurricanes come through, earthquakes, and teach them how to rebuild properly so these buildings don't collapse. Now, I don't know what the deal is with these ones in Myanmar, but it makes you think, hey, I wonder if this new printed concrete technology would have saved thousands of lives,
Yeah. I think what happens too, a lot of those in countries like that, they build, and what they build on, maybe it's not like rock or granite, or I'm trying to, terminology is escaping me, but it's almost like when the earthquake starts, what it's built on, that foundation turns to mud almost, or it liquefies, and then and so the structures just collapse, things like that. Crazy stuff goes on.
Sad.
Yeah, it is sad. I'm looking at the Trump Canadian tariffs that we're talking about. I'm like, how can I be polarizing? Doom and gloom. That's it. The end of the real estate market that's already being hit hard enough. I don't know, man. I tend to look at it like supply demand, and that I think that generally speaking, there's still more demand than supply, and so it'll mess with prices, but as a homeowner, that's good for me. Please, let's have prices go up, right?
Yeah.
The poor renters and home buyers, well, you're late to the party. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's get in early and then just know it's a teeter-totter. Like when it's good for sellers, it might be bad for buyers, or the market shifts. And
it was interesting. I was in the business obviously during 2008 to that 7, 8, 9 collapse, and in California, in coastal here, Encinitas, San Diego, you could buy houses for a while for less than the cost to build.
Yeah.
And I think that is that's like what any investor or renter or homeowner should keep an eye on, that like there is the ups and downs of the cycles, and the inevitable some sort of crash will come where there will be that window of opportunity where you can buy a house for less than it costs to build it. I'll never forget it because I was very in tune with the market, paying attention. And I was like, oh my God. Right. And crazy houses that were like epic, like, yeah. Anyway, so save your money so that when that happens, you can buy.
Yes. Smart money is getting ready.
Yeah, that's right. I know.
Yeah.
Can I be one of the smart money, please?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think the other thing I think too is as I'm a little bit older now. And so, interest rates were basically at zero for, I don't know how long, 10 years it felt like, or 50, something crazy. Interest rates were effectively zero. So if you were a little bit older and had cash investments, your rate of return was zero in effect. And so a positive side that people don't often talk about that is that as rates go up, like if you have CDs or you're in money markets or you are in bonds and you want to buy those interest-bearing vehicles, like me personally, I want more inflation. I'm like, I want more inflation because I want my cash, like the risk-free assets or less risky assets start having a better rate of return, and I'm actually surprised that seniors were not throwing more of a fit as interest rates were zero, like the AARP associated, the Association of whatever retired people, like these seniors going, yo man, like interest rates are at zero. Like how were seniors paying their bills when the rate of return on safe investments were in effect almost zero? Yeah. I could go on if you want me to. But.
Yeah, no, shut up.
Where are those other two people? Like, we need a different perspective already, because Liz, you are killing me right now.
No, this is great. I'm glad you have a background in that, because the finance side of it is so important.
Yeah.
And having gone through a major downturn, that gives you so much perspective on where we're going with this.
Yeah, you know what I think is super interesting too is that Trump is willing to, President Trump is willing to obviously risk higher inflation with a lot of what he's doing. He's like, yeah, I'm willing to do it. I know that the rhetoric was bring down inflation, but clearly with what he's doing, he is like, yeah, I don't care. Like there might be short-term inflation. Get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hard to say what he's thinking, or if he's thought through some of this stuff. I mean, you look at tariffs.
Yeah.
I've watched some videos where they're talking about where they tried that before, just heavy tariffs. It's like, this didn't work. So they went back to not doing these heavy tariffs. So
you know what? It's really interesting too. Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I believe first term, some of the things that he was talking about, I think Steve Cohen or something, like, I think that's the name. He was the head of, UBS or something like that, one of the big financial investment banks, but was telling him like a lot of the policy that you want to do is not good for the global economy. It might sound good, but it's like this, Steve, I think I could be speaking wrong, but it's someone like that. But he was literally like, you're seeing this wrong. You need to think of it from this angle. And so I'm not saying good or bad, but I think the interesting conversation is, what is he looking at that is making him think that tariffs to this extent are a good idea? Like, where's that source of information? Did he read an article in 1980 Or is he literally like, yeah, back when, we were when we were founding our country and the tea revolution or whatever, or what was that, like the tea, what was that where they threw the tea off the boat? You know what I'm saying?
Boston Tea Party.
Yeah, the Boston Tea Party. Is he like, that's stuck in his head and he can't let it go? So he's like, tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. I don't know. It's like, that's what I want to know. Where has this idea locked into his head?
Yeah. It's hard to imagine what it's like being president. You've got people just chirping constantly, individuals, groups, like parsing that out and making decisions. Like, it's gotta be bewildering.
Oh my God. I know. And the ramifications of your decisions are the ripple effects are unquantifiable.
Right.
Like truly, right? Or unknowable.
Yeah.
There's, Watergate, the Watergate scandal back in the 60s, 1960s. It's funny now, I'm old enough where I might tell somebody, yeah, like in the 80s, if they're young enough, they look at me and they go, the 80s? What are you talking about? Well, anyway, back in the 60s, Watergate scandal, right? Nixon was impeached and all that. The guy who helped break that, Bob Woodward, the author, and so a movie with Paul Newman and who's the other guy? Robert Redford. They made All the President's Men, won Oscars, something like that. Yeah. So Bob Woodward broke that story, wrote the book, all that. So he's still alive. He's written some books recently on Donald Trump that are really good read. There's Fear, War, and there's a third one. And they're really good. They give you really good insight into Steve Bannon and Donald Trump and their thought processes. And anybody on either side. So if you're like a Trump advocate or you're a Trump hater, like either party would be served by reading those books, because give you really good insight into what they're thinking, how he acts. And then also does have some really smart people working for him. And so you get insights. But anyway, just anybody watching, listening, go get those books. Great reads from a really smart guy who has incredible access to Donald Trump and his inner circle. Like, the fact that Donald Trump gives this guy this access is crazy. And he's like, yeah, write whatever you want, in effect. It's crazy. And you get transcripts of like, that's crazy. All stories will come up that are in the books as we're talking, but there's another little tangent for you.
Interesting. Okay. I'll write that down.
Yeah. Bob Woodward, Fear, War. I'm just read the one about where Trump was leaving office and Biden was about to take office. It's really good. And it gives you insights into the Palestine-Israel conflict and how they're dealing with that and how what's really going on. It's really cool. It's really good. It's a really good read.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I love book recommendations. That sounds interesting. Well, who are you?
Oh, hi. I'm Crystal Stranger with Optic Tax. I'm so sorry. I've forgotten about this. I'm so glad to be here, though. This is great.
Welcome, welcome.
Thanks.
Well, meet Mischa. Why don't you give us a little background on you and real estate and investing, and we'll just jump right back into it here.
Sure, absolutely. So my name's Crystal Stranger, and I have been a real estate investor for over 20 years. I started out initially with flipping houses. I'm doing a lot of long-term rentals, some commercial property, and then I've been doing short-term rentals, mainly Airbnb properties for about, I don't know, the last 10 years or so, give or take. And I also am professionally a tax expert, so I can help with issues on that. But real estate's always been good to me.
Oh, fantastic. Well, great to have you on.
Yeah, great to meet you. So happy to be here.
Right on.
I
So I
love
don't know
that.
if-
Real estate has always been good to me. That's such a great line. Through the ups and downs, it's such a true. I just want to I have buying properties has never been a bad move ever. It seems like.
Well, I mean, I've definitely bought some properties that maybe wasn't the best decision. I have had properties on occasion we've lost money on, but in general, not. You know, and there's usually kind of a cycle with properties where you buy it for one particular usage, you have a good run on it for a few years like that, then you kind of have to go back to the drawing board and say, is this the right location? Is this the right property? Do I need to look at if it has a better use case or better option for it? And a lot of times then I found like profit in other ways, like subdividing the land and reselling lots, or shifting the type of use between, say short-term rental or rental for like a specific kind of niche. Like every property has potential, but it's finding the right fit of that potential with your own skills and abilities, time, money, ability to get things done, that kind of thing. So.
Lots of factors.
Yeah.
Darn it.
That's a good put. Things change, and like we're getting into co-living, renting by the room. There's a wave of that. A lot of people converting Airbnbs over to that. You got to be on your toes,
Yeah, I don't know if I would do that, just because, back in my early 20s, I had a lot of those kind of living situations, and I know how difficult it is dealing with all the many personalities of roommates. So I don't know if that co-living would be free, but that's what I mean. It's not that there aren't good opportunities out there. It's just whether it's a fit for you and, how well you deal with people. And, there's a certain personality. I used to call it the personality who would make it to the end on Survivor. And I'm not really that personality. So that's like,
You're not going to be placating anybody. You're just like chop them off at the knees, and then to your own chagrin, you're off the island.
That actually works really well for Airbnb properties, surprisingly, because there is an element of needing to really please guests, but there's also a lot of people who will really take advantage of you as a host. And you've got to be able to draw that line. And, we have kind of a rule where in general, if somebody complains once, fine, we'll bend over backwards. We'll make it perfect. We'll come in and do it. But if they complain again, it's look, we're happy to fix this. Please let us know everything that needs to be fixed. But if you're not happy in the house, maybe you would rather go stay somewhere else.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to keep coming back and doing that. This is the one time type of thing. So
yeah. Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So the Airbnb wave, and then the need to start doing co-living, is that a lot of people got in over their heads on Airbnbs, and it feels like that they don't know how to manage or actually turn a profit on that? Or did the actual market shift, and so Airbnbs went from a good value proposition to sort of not as good value proposition right now?
I think it depends on the market. So, I mean, there's a lot of cyclical elements in Airbnb markets. And I think a lot of people are just so new to the game that they haven't really been through multiple cycles at this point, because it's only been around. We had our first Airbnb property in 2012, right? So it was very early in the spectrum. And, I've seen ups and downs several times now, and in different markets. And, an area will get really hyped for a while, and a lot of people will flood into the market. and then it'll get overcrowded, or the laws will change, or other things will happen there. And then you have to kind of regroup and say, what else can we do? Or is this the best market to be in? Should we stick around and wait it out until other weaker hands hop out? Or, do we want to do something different? Like, the pandemic was a great example of that. When the pandemic first started, we had a bunch of properties in New Mexico at the time, and there's this big race every year that's called the Bataan Memorial Death March. And it was always one of our, like, stellar rental weekends every year for 5 years before this. And suddenly in 2020, we had every single one of our reservations cancel within like a 24-hour period, right? And some of them, were kind of jerks and outright cancel. Other people, I got them to delay or change to a later date or come the next year another trip, right? But then it's like, it seemed like the market had just fallen out. Like, we're like a month and there's no rentals on the books. Like, everything is canceled. There's absolutely nothing. And do we stay with this business model, or do we rent long-term? And we had people reaching out to us wanting to rent our houses long-term, asking about it. But then I was like, oh no, like, I've heard talk in other states about rental moratoriums. I don't want to get caught up in a situation where someone moves in, pays us for a month, and then we're stuck with them for 2 years and we can't do anything with the house. So we just waited, and about another 3 weeks later, the bookings just took off like a rocket, because I think a lot of people had switched to long-term rentals and taken their houses off the market. And all of a sudden, we had all these rentals coming in for, 3 weeks, 5 weeks to get out of the cities and get to areas with less strict lockdowns. And 2020 ended up being a banner year for us. It was like one of our best years for our houses, even with like almost 2 months of absolutely nothing, just because the entire rest of the year was back-to-back rentals. So,
yeah.
Wow, James, what's your opinion on it?
Yeah, Crystal, you touched on a lot of good points there. I know what we're seeing, there's regulations or pending or potential regulations that the trend is kind of towards shutting things down and taxing and just making it harder to do short term, where we're seeing the trend for co-living, which is a need, like it's an affordable housing solution. So the trend is the other way. So like Colorado, for instance, very locked down with Airbnb. Like up in the mountains, they just shut things down. No new permits were allowed for a while. Denver, it has to be your primary residence. There's some little pockets where you can do it. But like the government's like, we got to do something. So, like Pad Split, we work with them.
Yeah.
They've met with, government officials, and they're actually like, you guys are providing a solution. What do you need? That's a trend that makes it better. And one other.
I like that idea. We actually sold our house in Colorado because it had gotten so difficult there, and just getting anything done was a nightmare. And we were up in the mountains, and just snow removal. I used to live in Norway, and Colorado has no idea what to do about snow. I'm sorry. It's like, really would bother me when I would go there. So, but no, I get it, because like we've been considering that. We have a house in Cape Town, South Africa, that's been a really good short-term rental for like the last 3 years. And we've been like talking about possibly doing that in the future with it, because it is like a large house. It actually was rented as a co-living space before we bought it. And it's a 4-bedroom, and it was set up as a 5-bedroom when it was a co-living space. And they rented out the rooms actually to modeling agencies for the models to come into town and stay there. It's kind of interesting, like business model of models. So I think that's, kind of an interesting property. But there's so many digital nomads in Cape Town that I think the buy the room rental to that digital nomad niche of people coming down, staying 3 months, 6 months. It could be like a really good business model in that house. And, there is a threat of different regulations coming in here as well. So, kind of on a wait and see right now as that progresses. But, I have thought more about that for sure.
Yeah, it's an option.
It's really interesting. Yeah.
The other thing I was going to say, I mean, we could dive in deep on this. We should probably keep going, but one thing that's nice about co-living is that you've got multiple rooms, and so your vacancy is usually just one room out of like a whole house, which is nice because when you look at like short-term rentals, especially in like a vacation rental area, you might have months where it's just crickets, and so it's a nice smooth
Yeah. So for short-term rentals, the way I break it down is there's two types of markets. One is your vacation rental market, which usually has a lot of seasonality to it, and you need to be able to optimize the high season. If you plan to use it yourself in the high season, you're never going to make a profit on it. You're probably going to break even, right? That's just kind of how those markets work. My favorite
Say that
short-term
again. Hold on. Let me interrupt you really quick. You're saying if you're anticipating on making if you anticipate making money during the high season or when you can rent it for the most, you that's not a recipe for success. Is that
No. That can be, depending on the market. You have to look at the numbers closely, but if you're planning on spending the time there when it's high season, you're going to be in trouble, right? So we have a couple of places in Costa Rica, and that market tends to be very seasonal. And we've had other markets like in ski towns and stuff that are very seasonal like that, where you'll have a season. Usually you have a high season, and then you have like two shoulder seasons, and then kind of a smaller high season, either in the mountains or kind of in beach or surf areas, because a lot of times your surf season is the winter. So it's not when your main tourism is. So Costa Rica, for example, like our places are by one of like the best surf breaks in the world. So we're like almost never there, like December through like March, April, because that's high season. That's when all the tourists come down for, the summer months. It's too hot. It's not my favorite time of year anyway. But then there's a really good surf season from like, June through August. And a lot of times we'll get, another good like 2 months of rental that time of year. But then it's completely dead usually in like April, May, and completely dead again in September, October, and part of November. Yeah. So that's what I mean by like seasonality. But I mean, you get a little bit of that anywhere you are. I mean, there's times of years people just don't travel a lot. So, people don't really take holidays in those kind of shoulder seasons, spring and fall, anywhere. But, you don't necessarily get a lot of bookings on that you will for co-living, but you may have other times where you have vacancy. So the last time I really looked heavily into co-living, it was in New Mexico, and we had a university there. And I was looking at this 8-bedroom house right by the university. And that was pretty nice. And it was like $100,000. And wow. I was like, man, we could like buy this 8-bedroom house that's like a block away from the university and rent it out to 8 college kids for like $300 a month.
That's a whole other story, though. Students versus why students and working professionals like we deal with. Totally different, but
it can be a good model too. I mean, I've known people to do that as well.
Yeah,
but totally. Then you have that time period where, typically in the summer, people will go for a month or two and, they'll graduate, and then you have 2 months of vacancy. So.
Exactly. Yeah. Hey, Crystal, do you see in the chat on the side the Google Doc?
Oh, okay.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
got all our news items we got to get through. So
Okay, fabulous.
pull that up, and then we'll jump into the next news item.
Great.
And we might have to skip a few here. So from United States real estate investor, Las Vegas real estate mogul faces federal indictment in sweeping fraud case. It said he faces federal indictment, but then in the article it says he has been indicted.
Yeah, I read he was indicted earlier, but I didn't sit down and read the story. I was kind of excited to hear about this, so that's great that we're covering this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It says he was defrauding investors out of $50 million through a fake luxury development scheme.
Interesting.
Yeah, it's just.
I like the end. It says experts urge vigilance, warning of red flags like guaranteed returns, vague paperwork, and fast pressure sales tactics.
Yeah,
I guarantee you 20% in 3 months. You want to see it in writing, and what's the contract? Well, we'll save that for another day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are red flags. Yeah, it sucks because guys like that just ruin it for everybody that is legit, that has good intentions, that have good operations, and they're trying to put these deals together and raise money. And then you got headlines like this, just everybody's like, oh God, the guy seemed legit, and they're talking to you as you're trying to put something together, and you seem legit too. So they're like in the back of their heads like, oh, I'm going to lose all my money. Just it's so frustrating.
Well, I mean, we're also though in a tricky economy a little bit for real estate investors at the moment, with interest rates having gone up so much in the last couple years. So if he was raising to build a large development and then he's not able to meet his pre-sale numbers, like it may not have originally intended to be a scam at this point, but it's just
turn that way.
I mean, a lot of times I think it's the kind of situation that in a different market could have panned out well, but ends up being a scam just because he overpromised and underdelivered because of market circumstances. So
yeah, interesting. I love that perspective, right?
Yeah.
It turned fraudulent thanks to the Federal Reserve. Not to, but that's fine.
Well,
undercapitalized, whatever.
Because I mean, when a market's rising and everyone's going crazy, it's like easy to be like, oh, I have the best deal. I have the best deal. And to believe there's no way to fail, especially if you've done a bunch of those deals and they were successful, then, you're offering these returns based on those deals. And, investors don't always understand the risks that come with it either. And then when you lose money, everybody looks for somebody to blame. Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
In there, it also says he was funneling funds into personal spending, including gambling debts.
Ooh,
so that's
well, you got to pay those gambling debts. I mean, they're gonna take a limb or something, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So I the only time I looked at real estate in Las Vegas was, oh man, when was it? It was back in around the year 2000 or 2001. I think I was looking at real estate back there, and it was because I lived in San Francisco at the time, and the rents were unbelievably expensive. I mean, nothing like what they are now, but at the time they were outrageous. And I was like, oh my gosh, for what I rent a room for, I can buy a 5-bedroom house with a 3-car garage in Las Vegas. Maybe I should move to Las Vegas. So I flew to Las Vegas to look at real estate. And this was kind of like the very first step in my real estate investment, life. And I'm going around looking at all these properties. And then I started thinking, do I really want to live in Las Vegas? And, I like go into like grocery stores, like way out, like, just in like the neighborhoods where I was looking at houses and they have like slot machines, and there's like, really sad looking people playing the grocery store slot machines. And eventually I came to the conclusion that I just don't like gambling enough to live in Las Vegas. And even though real estate investment maybe would be a good deal there, like I still had to kind of like the place to live there. So
that's a good rule of thumb.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vegas is kind of a cesspool. Sorry, anyone living in Vegas, man. Anytime there, I'm like, I can't get out fast enough. I'm sorry. I'm like,
poor Antonio, our producer behind the scenes.
Sorry, Antonio. Oh my God.
He just moved there a couple months back. I don't know, 6 months ago.
Well,
you're in the nice part though, right, Antonio? He's in the chat right now.
I mean, there's nicer parts of Vegas. I think it's a little more, slightly more balanced now than it was back then.
He says everything Crystal said was true.
I still don't think I'd live there, but it has good tax laws, so there's definitely tax advantages. I know lots of people who have relocated to Vegas over the years. So.
Yeah.
High leverage real estate opportunities all over the place too, supposedly.
There are.
Yep.
There are. Yep.
Let's go to our next article from the San Francisco Standard. Their multifamily compound seemed like a dream, but it came at an ugly price. So this is an interesting article, and they're calling this co-living, quote unquote. But basically, in 2019, 7 wealthy San Francisco families purchased this rent-controlled apartment complex so they could all live together. Mm-hmm. And the ugly side of it was that they kicked out 13 long-term tenants, many elderly, disabled, or low income, using the Ellis Act. And just for people that don't know, the Ellis Act is basically saying, like, if you buy it in a property and you're going to live in it as your own property, you don't have to keep those tenants. So they use that.
So being from San Francisco, we always called it owner move-in evictions. And it was everyone's, the thought you live in terror of at all times when you're a renter in San Francisco, I will say. But I mean, there's an ugly side of rent control that people don't talk about either. That, I mean, I have a lot of friends who have had, $500 apartments in San Francisco since like the 1990s that are like falling apart. I mean, they've ended up rebuilding their kitchens, redoing stuff in there. And then eventually they get kicked out with an owner move-in eviction when they've done either so much work or they don't want to do any work because, they know that could happen at any time. And you're basically living in like a flop pad for, forever. When you're in like your 40s, you're still living in like a kind of college crash pad, right? So it's a really hard situation to get out of because you get used to that. And then there's nothing you can ever really switch to that feels like a good deal after that. Yeah. So it has a double-edged sword. I get the reason that they have rent control, but if you look at areas with and without rent control, a lot of times the higher rent prices are the rent control areas because the market forces don't allow it to work naturally, and there's such a small number of units that become available that the prices go through the roof. And you don't see that as much in areas that don't have rent control, where the rents actually tend to stay more level over time. They might spike briefly, but they usually come right back down.
Yeah, so we can talk about rent control for hours, but you nailed it like that. That's the downside of it for sure.
Yeah.
And they've been talking about that. I always talk about it here in Denver because our rents are high. And our laws are starting to follow suit with California's very tenant leaning. But when you start talking that rent control and not letting the market do what it's supposed to do, things start falling apart. It sounds so nice, this utopia of rent control, but the reality is just not there, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I mean, it's probably useful for, short periods of time in certain situations, but, I don't know if it should be a long-term forever type of law, right? That's where it tends to kind of build up over time. But, rent control markets are usually good markets for long-term appreciation also because of that.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, in this article, I was going to point out, I won't name names, but there was 3 different people that were part of this group that bought in that are part of some funds. One of them, I mean, I used to get their mailers, very nice mailers for their real estate investing funds. So they knew what the hell they were doing.
Mm-hmm.
They're in the game. It's just unfortunate these people that are normally protected by, rules, elderly, disabled, low income.
Mm-hmm.
Normally they'd be protected, but they use that Ellis Act to get them out of there, which is unfortunate.
Well, it might end up being a long-term lawsuit as well. So definitely, there's many pro bono lawyers in San Francisco who will take those kind of cases and drag them out for many years, which it definitely looks like happened here. So, if you're planning on doing that, you do need deep pockets because that often is a multi-year process to remove tenants. So,
Yeah.
Mischa, I don't know.
Something?
Oh, I was going to say that, I mean, it obviously depends on whether you're a buyer or a renter, on whether you think the law is good. I lived in San Francisco Bay Area for a long time too. And I have friends from 20 years ago that are still in some of the same, they're locked into that rental, as because they can't move anywhere. But at the same point as being an entrepreneur and an investor and trying to build wealth for myself and my family over the years, I definitely was like, okay, if I'm going to buy a rental and I need to get people out in the Bay Area, I need to be prepared to evict people and move in, right? Like that's a legit strategy that people have. So you cannot fault them for that. But I guess when you're like over the top and moving out 13 people so you can throw a lavish party and move in yourself, that's a little extreme. Because that's the rub, right? You're like, look at how great we are, and we have this great lifestyle, and we evicted not homeless people, old people, right, who can barely pay rent. Yeah, what do you expect? It's a dumbass move.
Yeah, bad. Well, let's take a break and hear from one of our partners, and we'll keep on going.
Are you worried about where your money is headed in today's unpredictable market? At Accelerated Capital, their investors tell them that safety and security are their highest priorities. They want to wake up every day knowing their hard-earned money is working hard for them. In the best interest of their investors, Accelerated Capital carefully vets every opportunity, knowing that most of their investors want to avoid risky strategies and stick with more boring but proven asset classes and strategies. Accelerated Capital's team of seasoned real estate experts and financial strategists value long-term relationships and transparency. They're also there to help investors find a fit for their own personal goals. Accelerated Capital has options for both accredited and non-accredited investors at any stage of their investing journey. Visit AccelerateMyCapital.com to download a free copy of The Astute Investor and join their Legacy Wealth Collective private investor club. Or click Schedule a Call to book a short Capital Accelerator call today. To get started, visit Accelerated Capital at AccelerateMyCapital.com. That's AccelerateMyCapital.com. Accelerated Capital. Accelerate your wealth with alternative investments.
Okay, we're back. Let's see. I was just realized I wasn't streaming to LinkedIn and YouTube. You guys can do the same thing too, Mischa and Crystal. I don't know if you got those hooked up.
Yeah, I don't see how to do this. So
Upper right, you should be able to connect those, but if you can't figure it out, it's all right. This will be on YouTube. So.
Let's see. Oh, there we go. I believe I'm streaming. There we go. Hello, my loyal audience. I am live on Facebook, streaming live on Facebook. Oh my gosh, this month in real estate. James Brown, Crystal Stranger. What's up? Stranger. Stranger.
Hey.
Is it Stranger or Stranger?
Stranger. Yeah.
Stranger.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right,
cool. I'm streaming live. Love it. This is like, I mean, many people are like, oh yeah, stream live off of someone else's blah, blah, blah all day. I'm like, oh no, this is great. This is new-ish.
Gotcha. Yeah. Crystal, you got to jump off. Where are you, by the way?
I'm in South Africa right now.
Oh, you are?
So it's dinner time for me. And we were actually having a braai, which is a barbecue here. And I had spaced out about this because we were making donuts all morning at the kids' school. And then I swear I haven't looked at my calendar the entire day because we were out there like, making donuts all day. So
nice.
yeah.
I want to come to South Africa for the kiteboarding, or at least watch the guys, because they have these big competitions where it's just blowing like crazy and they're jumping.
Oh, you have to come where we are. We're in this little idyllic beach town called Scarborough. And it's the most beautiful place in the world. I mean, it rivals anywhere in California I grew up around. It's just stunning. It's a little conservation village with a few hundred houses. And we have one of the most famous kite surf beaches, like right next to us. And even at our beach, at Scarborough Beach, it's you'll see kite surfers there a lot. But there's another beach called Whitsands that's right up the road. And you see all summer long, because we get the southeaster winds, there will be just amazing, kite surfers doing, jumps like 25 feet out of the air and crazy moves, and hundreds of them out there. Yeah. It's wild. It's so wild.
That's too many, but
yeah, it's really big here. It's really big. So, my husband's a surfer. So we get big waves and everything also, but not as often. Like the kite surfing, they probably have at least 100, 150 days a year they can kite surf here. So it's awesome. Yeah.
Sharks. Antonio put sharks. Yeah, kind of sharky down there.
No, it's actually not sharky anymore. That's the crazy thing. It is in some of the other areas. So it's a lot of shark risk, like when you go further up the coast where the water's warmer. But here, there's almost no sharks anymore because a bunch of killer whales, like orcas, came in and killed all the great whites because they like to eat their liver. It's like a delicacy for this group of orcas around here. And, we actually need more sharks because now because there's no great whites, the seal population's out of control. So they've been overeating all the fish. And because of that, the kelp is completely out of control because there aren't enough fish eating the kelp because the seals aren't getting eaten by the sharks. So everyone was really excited, last year, when the first great white that they had seen in 10 years or something in this area showed up, and people were doing spottings of it over in Cock Bay, really excited. And then about 2 days later, an orca showed up and just slaughtered it, right in front of everyone on the beach, and just ate its liver.
Jeez, that's crazy.
So yeah, there's no sharks now.
Well, thank God the sharks are coming back. That's a sign of a thriving ecosystem. Watch your legs, but.
So yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'd love to come back. This is super fun to do this, and
awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Well, thanks. So you're gonna hop off and come back, or we'll probably be done in about half hour.
Yeah, I can if you want. Would you like me to come back? So I can try to come back. So
if you make it back and we're still on, jump back on.
We will see. So I'll see. Maybe I will see you in a little bit. All right.
More will be revealed.
All right.
We may go another hour. We'll see.
All right.
All right. Cool. All right, let's go to the next one. Well, that was fun. A little news from South Africa.
News from South Africa. Love it.
And she's like, in the chat, I got to go eat dinner. I'm like, wait.
What?
It's like
I know. Wait, what?
lunchtime here.
I know. Breakfast. Oh, no, that's right. Lunchtime here too. All right, next. Where are we?
Let's see. From Payments, PYMNTS. I'm not familiar with that news source, but a report. Wells Fargo sues JPMorgan Chase over a commercial real estate loan. My first thing was like, oh, those guys are loaning each other money. So, but apparently something, a $481 million loan in 2019. They apparently overstated their net operating income by 25%. So that's not good. So Wells Fargo is suing Chase.
Yeah, so it sounds like Chase originated the loan, and maybe Wells Fargo bought the loan.
Yeah.
From Chase, JPMorgan Chase. Is that what's going on here? Maybe.
Yeah.
And somebody lied and said, this is a great loan. Look at all this operating income.
Yeah.
Magical math.
Yeah. That's not good.
That's not good. Lending practices, New York Fed norms could be fueling systemic risk and distorting loan markets. Ooh, that's exciting.
Yeah. They're seeking damages or a forced repurchase of the loan. Not sure how that works. That's a whole world I'm not familiar with, what the bankers are doing behind the scenes.
Yeah. It's like how they collateralize the loans and how CDOs collateralize debt obligations. Although I'm not sure if that was, maybe this loan wasn't put into a pool of other loans, but they just bought that one outright. That's so much of the business is you have loan originators, and then they sell off the notes, and then they'll also sell off the servicing rights, where somebody's collecting the pay. Somebody owns the note, and somebody collects the payments for them.
Yeah, that could be two different companies or the same, right?
Yeah, I worked for Wells Fargo Home Loans for a long time, and Wells Fargo was big in the servicing market. So they would, anybody watching, listening, and maybe this happened to you, James, or Antonio in the background, is you are paying your loan payment to Chase or Bank of America or something like that, and then you get that letter in the mail that says, hey, you're going to be making your payment to a different company now.
Yeah, it can happen over and over.
Over. Yeah.
My house, I bought in 06, probably 4 times before it kind of settled out. And then I sold. So.
Yeah, it's interesting too. There's so much money in the servicing rights, and companies like Wells Fargo and the big brand name banks, they'll go buy pools of these servicing rights, and then they market their services to who they now to the customer, right? So all of a sudden, you see it go from a lot of like wholesale or what do you call them, like loan brokers, like a loan broker versus a banker, right? You got Wells Fargo bankers, and you've got brokers. So the brokers are bringing in loans under not brand name loan companies. Does that make sense? It's been a bit since I've been in that space, but then Wells Fargo buys the servicing rights. And so now all of a sudden they're like, hey, James, you should get a checking account here. Hey, James, you should get a credit card here. So there's big money in loan payments. It's crazy, like multi-billion. Anyway.
Yeah, it's got my wheels turning thinking about like when I bought my house in 06. And like I said, it got sold off as it like through the 08 and beyond, right? I sold in 2019, but then of course I refied.
Yeah.
And so like, I don't even remember now who I refied with, if it was whoever held that loan and was reaching out to me because I was in their sphere, and they were like, hey, do you want to refi now? Or I just preemptively, I went through somebody else anybody can do a refi and take that loan away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think it's crazy that in the industry still, that Wells Fargo went and bought a loan for $481 million, a commercial real estate loan. And then they find out after the fact that the income was overstated. It's like, well, did you do any due diligence? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
was it a handshake deal that the guy's like, oh no, they're good. Trust me, take the loan. And the guy at Wells is like, oh, okay, great. 400. Yeah, we're trying to meet quota. We'll take it,
Yeah, it makes you wonder. Like if you're buying like a multifamily property, you're doing all your due diligence, you're getting the rent rolls, you're seeing what that net operating income is. And of course, maybe there's some stuff an owner could hide.
Yeah.
But who knows what's going on with that amount of money? Like what accountants are digging into that? Like what kind of things are they looking at to confirm? What is that NOI? Where's it coming from? How do you?
I think that's the scary part about that headline right there. It's like, wait a minute, are we back in sort of that systemic dysfunction that we had back in 2005, 6, 7, 8, where everybody just believed everybody, and they're like, yeah, that's your income, great, yeah, okay, yeah, let's just get the loans on the books, let's get this money moving. And if like, are we going to see a lot more of this where it turns out that trillions of dollars in commercial loans were funded and bought under false pretenses?
Yeah.
Get ready.
Yeah. We'll see. All right, let's go to the next one from United States real estate investor. U.S. real estate faces investor nightmare with impending delinquency and foreclosure crisis. It says filings have surged 45% year over year, with over 1 million FHA-backed mortgages in default and hidden from the market by ongoing government intervention.
Yeah, that basically means that the homeowner is in default and the government is not, or whoever the servicer is not taking that property back, and the government's saying, no, you got to be in default, or whoever the government is allowing that to perpetrate in their. Yeah, right. Am I saying that right?
Yeah. I wonder how much of what they're talking about there, the ongoing intervention, has to do with like, is your dog drinking water there?
Oh yeah, can you hear it or see it? Can you hear it?
I just could hear it. I'm like, that sounds like a dog drinking water.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, can you hear that? That's great. Oh my gosh, I wish Mama was. Come here, Mama. You got to smile for the camera. This is the biggest bulldog you've ever seen. The biggest bulldog in the world. She's like 100 pounds. Oh my gosh. But yeah, it's crazy. Oh, there she is. Guest appearance. Here we go. Let's see. Come here, Mama. Come up here. Over here. She's not going to show herself. Maybe she's a big dog. That's so sweet. Anyway,
she's shy.
Yeah, she's shy.
Like,
yeah.
Live TV.
Yeah. No, she's like pushing me around like a dog like that, 100 pounds. When they want to move they do. And then, she drinks like a gallon of water at a time. It's incredible. So you can hear it from like half the room away. You're like, what is that? You're a good girl, Mama. Come up. Oh my gosh. I wish I could move the camera. Oh, here we go. Let's go. We'll do it. Oh, there you are.
Oh, hello.
Yeah. Sorry, distraction. Mom was a good dog. I was reading that article a little bit. I was reading that. Oopsie, what happened? Uh-oh. Am I still there, or did I blow up?
Yeah, you're a little blurry. Antonia put in here, apparently the Biden administration was fixing the loans to help borrowers. I remember hearing something about that. I don't know what that means, fixing the loans. I know, you can do a loan mod and, push things out. They were doing that, especially through COVID.
Yeah.
So anyway, it's not looking good. This points out. And then the serious delinquencies were showing up in Vegas, Phoenix, and Orlando, which is kind of like what we saw before. Those were the areas getting hit when we went through 08. So
Yeah.
Also it talks about Trump's tariff policies ending abruptly, possibly, which could cause inventory to spike, collapsing property value. So yeah, we'll see.
Yeah.
And they also pointed out those with cash and creative strategies like we are in may be the best position to win. I mean, when I got into rent-to-own investing, it's always been a thing, but we were all kind of waiting. We're like, our time to shine is coming, but you have to have investors ready to go that aren't scared, going the direction, the opposite direction of everybody else. Like, Buffett always talks about. So there's opportunities. And what I love about rent-to-own investing is helping people become homeowners, not continuing to be renters, as long as they fit our program. So
Yeah. Sorry, my camera went sideways on me.
it's still blurry.
Yeah, I know. Hi, everybody watching. That's me, blurry. Sorry, I was trying to fix it in the background, so I'm a little disengaged from the conversation. But I'm back with you. I'm going to let it go and trust that it'll reboot or do whatever it needs to do on its own. But it looked like too that they were taking all that deferred, and they were taking all the default interest and just putting it back on the back end of the loan. And so people are concerned that these homeowners are just going more and more in debt, right? Yeah. Anyway, fingers crossed. Yes, I'm blurry and frozen. I'm sorry, and I can't. StreamYard doesn't really allow me to change cameras. So it's one of those days, isn't it, where someone got on late, left early, right before we went live. Your stuff was going sideways.
Yeah.
Leave and come back. Done.
Yeah, leave and come back. See if that'll fix it.
Okay.
This is a lot of people listen to this on podcasts, so they can't see Mama in the background.
So they didn't care. They're like, "What are you doing?" Yeah. Sorry about that.
They don't know your screen's blurry, but yeah, jump back out and then.
Well, I'll tell you what. I just got good brownie points by showing off my girlfriend's dog. She's gonna be like, "Oh my God, that was the sweetest thing ever." So you in podcast land that are listening, just know that you just helped me get a ton of brownie points. Now I'll leave and come back.
All right, sounds good. I don't know how long it'll take him to come back, but if anybody's listening in or watching on YouTube and you got comments, feel free to jump in there and leave comments. Good, bad, post questions. I like that this can be interactive through YouTube. We used to actually stream to Facebook and you could comment in there, but Facebook shut down streaming into groups. So their loss, YouTube's gain. So let's see. This reminds me of if you guys want to go watch a funny skit on Saturday Night Live. There's this skit with Will Ferrell way back where they're newscasters and their teleprompter stops working and they don't know what to do. They're just so reliant on the screen to tell them what to say. They have no idea what to do. So I won't give it away, but go watch that. Search for SNL teleprompter newscast or something, and it's it goes off the rails. It's great. So, well, while we're waiting for him to come back in, I'm just going to read the next article, and if he jumps back in, we'll talk about it. So, from Arizona Attorney General Mays, Mayes, sues real estate operators and title companies for defrauding Arizona homeowners. I dug into this article because it's interesting. He's back.
I'm back. Look at that. Bam.
And your camera's working.
And it's working. Yeah.
Cool.
Clear
All right.
Yeah, there we go. I just needed to log out and come back. I had a chance to go to the restroom. Sorry, everybody.
Oh, wow. You're fast.
I know, right?
Good. Cool.
It's disintegrating in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Well, okay, cool. I'll just kind of back up. I just read that the title for the last article. Do you have that in front of you?
Which one are we talking about?
So Attorney General Mays sues real estate operators and title companies for defrauding Arizona homeowners.
Ooh.
Yeah, this guy, Cameron Jones of Gazelle Investors, Samuel Sutton of Magnum Financial, and others deploying fake charities, door-to-door deception, and high-pressure sales tactics to rob homeowners of their equity. So it looks to me like what they were doing. You know, we get in the real estate industry, we get lists of people that are potentially going into foreclosure, pre-foreclosure lists.
Okay.
And so what they were doing, they're sending out door knockers, people to the homes once they get that notice, and they were posing as foreclosure relief specialists or representatives of charitable organizations, and they'd actually fabricated an entity called Arizona's Helping Hands. Totally shady. So they were, gaining trust, making those people think they were actually helping them. And they were doing stuff like making them sign some stuff where they were basically controlling these properties, fixing and flipping them, and then, stripping their equity. That's what that's what gives investors a bad name, is exactly this. It's so sad.
It's incredible the shenanigans that go on in the real estate industry. I mean, no matter how much, there's always someone out there doing something. It's, on the whole, I believe most people have good intentions, and most investors and realtors and buyers and renters are have their intentions in the right place. But there's always a pool out there that's just working the system, right?
Yeah.
And I think it goes back to that other, the tower that was being built that went sideways and the guy was getting sued or whatever, or don't believe it if it's too good to be true. Like, that's the lesson to learn, is when that stuff sounds too good to be true, it is.
Yeah.
And I think it's so easy to believe the hype. But it looks like that these guys were saying, we'll put you into bankruptcy to help you, but not really putting them into bankruptcy, and probably telling them, hey, let's go ahead and put your home into our name or our sham company name or whatever, right?
Yeah.
And then being able to pull the equity out, sell it or whatever. It's crazy. I think too, when we're in a bad place, we want to believe it's too good to be true. So if you're having problems paying your house payment, someone shows up and it's like, we'll help you. You're like, okay. Anyway.
Yeah. That's sad.
Yeah.
It makes me think too, like the subject to, it's a way of taking over somebody's payment, and that's in a situation like this, subject to their current financing. So people that aren't aware of this, it's a common thing, and becoming more common because there's more people going into default. And so an investor can come in, potentially take over their loan, which has got a low interest rate, most likely. And because that low interest rate is helping them cash flow, they can turn it into a rental, save those folks from going into default and ruining their credit for years on end. The loan's staying in their name, right? But the deed is transferring. So that can be a good solution, but it's a risky thing potentially for that homeowner, because that loan's staying in their name, especially if you're dealing with people like this.
Go
ahead.
Well, I was going to say, so then the homeowner owns the debt, or still has the debt, but they own the house, so they have a big loan on nothing basically. So they're taking all the risk, and whoever has the deed now gets all the reward potential. I thought that.
Yep.
What did you call it? Subject to?
Yep.
I thought that the banks didn't like that. Like that's
No.
like a right. They don't like it when you transfer.
No, they typically don't. Well, they can call the note due if they want, but if somebody's making the payments and they don't have to take a house back, because banks aren't in the business of taking houses back, they're just getting paid. It's all good. And rarely does the note get called due, but it could. So there's some things that you can do to kind of avoid that. But if you can help save somebody from destroying their credit, it can be a good option. But again, it's these unscrupulous people can
take advantage,
either intentionally or unintentionally put people in a bad spot.
Yeah.
And that's the downside. And, I've had some conversations with our managing broker with EXP here. He's just, we have 3 managing brokers, but they're all kind of like, if for the other agents, if they've got clients that are in a situation, they're like, just don't do it. Like, that's kind of the blanket statement. And I get that. It's better safe than sorry. But if we're saving somebody as an investor from ruining their credit and losing their house, it is an option. But I do see both sides of it. Just, you got to know who you're dealing with. Yeah. So,
well, don't people sell houses that way too as well? They're like, hey, we'll sell you our house and we'll let you, and then this is in effect what you're talking about. You're saving someone's credit. You're saying, I'll buy your house from you. You keep the note, but we'll make the payment for you. And then as long as
anybody could buy it. Now it's different than an assumption.
Right.
And that's another way to if you're selling a house, right?
Yeah.
If it's an assumable loan, FHA, VA, or USDA, those are assumable.
Are they assumable? So as long as you qualify, you can take it over?
Exactly. And, there's the bank has to say yes. They have to qualify that person. But, if you can get through that process, and it takes longer, could be 45 days, 60 days to get through that. You might be able to get that lower interest rate loan. So it's a selling point. If you're trying to sell, like, hey, somebody can afford this house I want this high number for, because I'm giving them this assumable loan.
Yeah, I thought the government loans, the govies, we called them govies, like FHA, VA, stuff like that, were non-assumable, but they are assumable. Have you ever actually seen one of those transactions go down? Because I never, in my 15 years in home loans, I mean, people would talk about it, but we never actually saw. I personally never saw one of those transactions go down where somebody bought a house and then assumed their loan at a better interest rate. Have you seen that happen?
I haven't personally. We do have a platform that we can go search for those loans, which is cool. So,
oh, really?
There's a couple out there, but we have one that it actually will search on and off market. So, like, if somebody's looking to buy a home, like say here in Colorado, we can go search for even off market properties and reach out to the sellers and find those. And if they're well qualified, great.
So you would search the database for homes locally in Colorado or wherever you want, but for you, in your case, Colorado, that have a government loan on it. And then you would reach out to them and say, hey, you want to sell this property? We'll assume your loan.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And something most people don't know too is VA loans, veteran loans, are assumable by anybody. It doesn't have to be a veteran, and it can be an investor. So that's, if you're an investor and you've got the ability to get a loan, boom, you might be able to get a 2.5%, 3%, 4% loan instead of going and trying to get a loan at 8% as an investor. you're going to be a point higher than a primary home buyer. That's, but now, hey, she's back. Welcome back, Crystal. We're talking about assumable loans. I was talking about VA loans being assumable by investors. The downside is the VA, they've got this amount of money they can borrow with their VA loan, and they're not just they lose that ability to take that and go buy another house. But if, say, they bought a house in Colorado Springs, it's a huge military town. Now they've got getting deployed to Germany or South Africa or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. There's military bases there, but anyway, that kind of situation, they might need to just go rent there, stay on base, and so they're like, we'll just sell this and pass on our VA assumption.
Well, I mean, it can be really great right now because of the interest rates going up so much, because you have to keep that rate when you assume it, I believe, right?
Yeah, that's the benefit. Yeah. Beautiful thing.
So the military person, they lose their eligibility for a zero down loan, basically, if somebody assumes their existing loan. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, exactly. So that would be the downside for the military person. But I guess if they want out or what have you.
But like maybe they bought a house that's they say they got $500,000 in eligibility, but their house in Kansas is $300,000. They might be able to keep that one in place and go buy another property in a low area, because they've still got some room in that amount that they can borrow.
Yeah, I mean, I've known some people in the military who have bought houses repeatedly like that, and bought duplexes and fourplexes where they lived in one and then turned it around and rented it, and then went on, bought another one like that. So there's lots of ways to play with those rules, right?
Yeah. Well, the other trick with the assumable too is if there's equity in it, you've got to pay out that seller that equity. So if you've got a lot of equity, you got to come up with the cash for that, or get a second position loan for that, and then another. You just assume that first one. So there's always kind of like a balance.
It can also be a problem the other way around if it's backwards, because those are 0% loans, and in some places prices have dropped a little in the last couple of years. So they might have bought it with basically no down payment, and now the market's softened and they're backwards on the loan. Yeah. So you don't necessarily want to take on a property that's above market value unless you're going to hold it for a long period of time when that low interest rate can pan out for you. So.
Yep.
Yeah. That actually is a game. That's actually a game I used to play with the, when I was doing like owner financing offers, and, when I was doing a lot of like, direct marketing and reaching right out to sellers to buy properties and negotiating those deals. A lot of times I would make two offers, and the first offer would be, like a fairly standard interest rate at one price point. And then the second one would be a higher price point, but like a low or zero interest rate. And a lot of times people would sell for what they thought was like a little bit higher price or even slightly above market. But if you're going to stay on the property for, even 3 to 5 years, you're going to save so much money with no interest rate. You can, make an offer that looks really good on paper for a seller that's very price conscious like that, and let them feel like, they're coming out of it without losing face on the deal, right?
Yep, totally. Yep. Yeah, you nailed it.
I love your Crystal, your depth of experience in real estate is awesome. I was just asking James about, I was in home loans for 15 years and I never saw somebody assume a loan, right? Like everybody would always talk about, hey, there's these options to do this, but never saw it in action. And it sounds like you have seen and even marketed to that and took advantage of the assumability.
Yeah, I've done that. Another thing you can assume that people don't know about is car leases. It can be a really good way to get a car as well. So, we've actually done that in the past with like getting cars where they'll sometimes, especially if businesses, they'll actually pay you to assume the lease, and you just assume it to the time period. So you get the last like year or year and a half of like a 1-year-old BMW at a few $100s a month, and you actually get paid instead of paying a down payment. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. I know Pace Morby, if anybody's in the real estate investing world knows his name, but he's got a good story about selling a Ford F-150 on terms like that. Got the number he needed. So yeah. Well, hey, let's keep things moving. From the Washingtonian, how Trump's return to office order is impacting the DC real estate scene. So forcing employees to come back. A lot of them had moved out of DC because they could remote work. And now they're like, oh, crap, we got to move back. And then the prices have come up 25% since 2020 when they moved away. So,
wow.
Yeah, but then the DC market has also crashed a lot in the last year. It had softened a lot last year. And when the executive orders started coming out beginning of the year, I know there was a flood of properties going on to Zillow. There was a great graphic that had come out like a month ago that was showing like the properties popping up over like a 1-week period in when the executive orders were coming out. So I don't think it would be that hard on them coming back with the return to office mandate. I guess it's a little more like, how much do you want your job, right? With the current administration. So.
Yeah. Interesting. Said there a lot of people are just renting near the metro lines. So they're kind of like, what should we do? Should we go buy again or just rent?
I think it makes sense to rent right now if you have to go back to DC for work, because nobody's job is guaranteed right now. That was very clear from that fork in the road email. It was giving employees a way to take kind of a graceful out. And the second part of it was basically saying that, nobody's job is guaranteed going forward.
Yeah.
So, I think we're seeing that now. And now, I know in the IRS, I came out in a webinar like a month ago saying, I looked at the numbers and it looks like about half the IRS is going to get cut. And nobody could believe this, right? That half the IRS would get cut. And then Trump came out a few weeks later and said, the plan is to cut half the IRS. And it's like, yep, see, this is the numbers. When you add them all up, that's what it comes up to be. So,
yeah.
Crazy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, hey, let's take another break for our next sponsor.
It's finally time to effortlessly attract new clients. Learn more at universemediapublishing.com.
Are you looking to elevate your business through exceptional content? Universe Media Publishing is your gateway to success. We understand that in the world of business, content is king, but not just any content. Your business deserves content that captivates, convinces, and converts your audience into clients. At Universe Media Publishing, we specialize in crafting SEO-rich web content, persuasive copywriting, and marketing copy that resonates with your audience. We don't just write, we engage, we connect, and we deliver results. Imagine your brand's voice amplified, your message crystal clear, and your presence dominating the digital landscape. That's the power of partnering with Universe Media Publishing. Don't let your business just blend in. Stand out, be heard, and make an impact. Connect with us at Universe Media Publishing, and let's turn your vision into reality. Visit universemediapublishing.com today. Your story, our expertise. Together, we'll create magic.
All right. From Benzinga via Yahoo Finance, billionaire Peter Thiel, I think you say it, warns of a looming real estate catastrophe, a massive hit to the lower middle class and young people who can't buy homes. I think we're all aware of this, right? What do you guys think? Any comments on that?
I don't know. It's a warning 20 years too late. So, I mean, this has been the issue for a long time in large swaths of the country. So it's, anybody would find this shocking news is, living, living in some kind of fantasy world, right? So.
Yes. Marginal headline at best.
Yeah. It says, excuse me, without urgency, policy reform to ease building restrictions and increase supply, Thiel warns that economic inequality and social division will only deepen. So, yeah, I guess we got to focus on solutions. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, there's a lot deeper beneath the surface here, because there's been a large trend over the last 5-6 years, I would say, escalating, but maybe the last decade where it started, of hedge funds for purchasing single family homes in many markets as long-term rentals, where a lot of times they are the main landlord now. And it's, there's this large controlling interest for this. So now we're starting to see a lot of these billionaire hedge fund investors say, hey, we need loosened restrictions so we can build more and have more rentals on all these properties where we've cornered the markets and driven up rental prices.
I love that perspective. And I was just going to ask, when you brought this article up, is like, what's Peter Thiel's, agenda here, right? Because it's so clear, like, you really care about that, Peter? You're like a hedge fund manager with billions of dollars floating around in all these places. It's like, come on, give me a break. It's so disingenuous.
Yeah.
It's look for the self-interest if you want to understand what's really going on, right?
Yeah.
Some of these.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the. Oh, do you have something to say about it?
No, I was just looking at Antonio, your producer in the background, said he's been around San Fran, which is one of the highest markets. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, it's from the Bay Area. So in the Bay Area, property's been crazy since the mid 90s when it went off the charts. So
yeah,
nothing new there.
Yeah. A stat that doesn't always pop up, but should people think, oh, these hedge funds own all these rentals? Well, apparently I think it's only about 25% of like single family homes are rentals. Hedge funds only, if I remember correctly, only own like 2% of that 25%. So it's not a significant amount. It's mostly mom and pops that, like us, that own, a handful maybe, and that's our retirement. So it's not these big.
So what it is though is they've really cornered certain markets. So I remember when, one of my close girlfriends moved to Florida, she was really surprised because every property she looked at was owned by hedge funds. And it was the only properties available on the market. And she's like, thank goodness I have really good credit, because if I didn't, we wouldn't be able to rent any house anywhere near where we need to live, because every property in the area of, southern Florida where she was looking to rent was owned by, these type of corporate entities. And, I think in certain markets, you really have it because they've been very selective of which markets they've gone into, and they've gone into and purchased a lot of properties in those markets. I also think that data is a little skewed because, hedge funds don't own properties directly. They own them through things like Delaware statutory trust, through
Yeah.
other types of real estate investment trusts that often then own them through like series LLCs underneath that. And it's hard to trace that ownership structure up to who the actual owner is.
Yeah.
So I think the statistics might be a little hard to gather that information on.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Love that. You are a wealth of information, Crystal. This is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time thinking about this over many, many years. So, but Peter Thiel, he's he has some really great ideas, but then you always have to be a little suspicious also because he owns other companies that are a bit like Skynet and the future of machines taking over the world. He has some, he has his fingers in a lot of interesting stuff right now. So I would be, a little suspicious there as well.
Yeah. So. He's got a voice and he could move markets or change perceptions, right? Potentially.
Yeah.
He's tired of Musk getting all the headlines. He's like, hey, I started PayPal PayPal too. Wasn't that Musk behind PayPal as well? He's like, wait a minute, how come he's getting all the press? I want some.
Yep.
Oh.
So the two South Africans battling it out in U.S. politics.
Oh.
Yes. What the heck?
Yeah, I mean, Peter Thiel's not actually South African, but he grew up in South Africa. So a lot of people here talk about the two of them as like being such horrible representatives internationally of South Africa and South African values because they're both at like total odds with how the majority of people here like think and believe. Yeah, it's kind of funny. So
yeah.
Antonio says he and his buddies spent $800 million on California real estate.
Yep,
that's a lot of money.
Yeah. And the market in California has softened a lot, so they're probably looking to pivot, like I said earlier, and find ways to loosen restrictions, take a bunch of those single family homes that they bought and aren't giving them the returns they want, and level them, build multifamily, something that has a higher ROR.
Okay?
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, from the Baltimore Banner, class action lawsuit claims Howard and Arundel real estate businesses operated kickback scheme. That's a awkward title. So the Bob and Rana group, it's a real estate team, apparently potentially, what do you call it, going against RESPA laws, RESPA standing for Real Estate Settlement Procedures Act, that keeps these different companies in line without like referring affiliated businesses to other businesses and getting kickbacks. It's pretty common for like real estate agents to work with lenders and title companies, and some of them owning the same companies. And so there's laws governing all of that for people that aren't in the business. But anyway, it sounds like these guys potentially ticked off one set of sellers that got a attorney breathing down.
I would bet that happens all the time, all over the place, and they just don't get caught. As I've had, especially with selling properties, there's certain agencies in certain markets that whenever we sell properties and they're representing the buyer, it's like they'll recommend a certain title company that, and sometimes it's one that it's like, oh no, they're awful. I've dealt with them before, but then they fight so hard tooth and nail to work with that particular title company, whether representing buyers or sellers. So I've definitely seen this with certain brokers and certain markets that are tied to it. I think anyone who's been in, real estate and bought, a number of houses, if you bought 5-10 houses in a market, you probably have seen that somewhere.
Yeah. I mainly work on the listing side, and we typically, the seller picks the title company, but most of my sellers, they have no idea what title companies are good, and there's a lot of good ones out there. There's bad, and they can kind of fluctuate. Sometimes it's hit or miss, but I've found one that I really trust. So I'm like, it's up to you guys, but I would suggest this title company because they probably won't screw things up and miss some things. Yeah. So I know they say to like, oh, give them 3 options. That's an opinion where I'm like, let's just go with somebody that I know. And the same on the buyer side, man, there's a lot of lenders out there. Mischa, you were a lender, like there's terrible lenders. And, if somebody comes to me and they're like, yeah, I'm with XYZ internet loan company, like, oh, like we're not directly working with that loan officer. You call their 800 number, you might get somebody else. Like that's a disaster in the making. So I'm going to be like, hey, you might be pre-qualified with this lender. I suggest going with this lender, and I can't force them to, but that's kind of what they're talking about here was that kind of situation where their salespeople were being kind of.
Well, no, they were getting thousands of dollars like on monthly retainer to refer that one company exclusively. So that's a little blatant, right?
Yeah, like, that's less of a violation when the money is there.
Like, one of the things, like when you work with a good real estate agent, like especially, the real estate agents that specialize with investors, usually, as an investor, it's like if I'm in a new market, I'm going to hope that they'll give me the rest of the team that is like a title company that gets stuff done, turns it around quickly, identifies any problems right away before time goes on, so you don't lose your earnest money, right? That they're, doing those checks, like, preliminary title checks and things like right away. So you're not, going to be in a situation where you have to fight for your earnest money back. And same thing, on a mortgage broker, like having somebody good is the difference between closing a deal and not. So.
Yeah, I think title and escrow, I was in the business for 15 years and I found that title was irrelevant, actually, who you picked for title usually, and that it was the agents representing the buyers were writing their title companies into the offers and not even really telling the buyers, giving them an option. They're just like, this is how it is, standard operating procedure. Here's the title you're using, right?
Yeah.
So I had a few bad experiences, which is why I look at that very closely now, and it can make a big difference. So, because depending on which title company you use is, you can have differences in fees, you can have differences in coverage. For example, not all title companies will inform you well about the additional coverage. I think it's the Alta coverage, which covers things like if your survey map isn't correct and you need to down the line make an adjustment, have things like that, can be many, many thousands of dollars in legal fees, in survey costs. And I look at surveys very closely, but I've also learned to really ask a lot of questions of escrow companies while I go through them.
It's good. On the loan side, typically was not seeing that level of detail from the agents, or if it was happening in the background. But I would say so many of the agents, there's not what the bulk of the agent. There's so many agents that do one or two properties, one or two transactions a year, maybe, so they don't know to go that deep on what's going on.
I mean, James, you're in Colorado. I was looking at getting my Colorado real estate license at one point. It's pretty extensive, the training in Colorado.
Yeah, Texas, California, and Colorado are like the hardest to get licensed. 168 hours of study just to get the license here. Yep.
Yeah. So it's a lot of material, but not everybody, I think, actually does the work. They might say they do, but not everyone actually knows it very well either, even in those markets. Yeah.
I think it depends on the area you live to. So much in Southern California is are like the not prefab, it's just big developments where there's nothing hiding. There's not really that many unique properties, right? Like there's really almost never any title issues, at least, you know what I'm saying? It's what do you call them? Like they're building 100 or 1,000 unit single family developments, right? And so there's nothing funky usually going on with title or easements or things like that. You start getting in more rural communities, and then it's like, oh yeah, there's who's got the water rights and what is the map and things like that. But I think in Southern California, that is not the case because it's so cookie cutter. That's what would be a better way to say it.
Yeah, that's part of the fun of this. That's part of the fun of learning new areas as well. I enjoy all researching and learning that.
Nice.
Sweet.
Well, we got a couple more news items from Realtor.com. Larry Ellison pouring millions into exclusive Palm Beach Enclave, the island right next to Mar-a-Lago, near Mar-a-Lago. He purchased the Palm Beach Resort for $277 million. It's a big chunk. It says neighbors like Sean Hannity, homes hitting $100 million price points.
Yeah, well, I think it's nothing new for Larry Ellison. He bought the entire island of Lanai with 2 Four Seasons resorts on it, and I think he just wrapped up remodels of at least the beach resort. I think the one in the middle of the island as well. So, buying an island with a fancy resort, adding Nobu to it, this is just deja vu, right?
Yeah.
So,
I guess the key question is, does Larry even know what's happening? Did he read the headline as well himself and go, oh, I am? Right? It's like whoever's managing his money is like, hey, here's an investment we're going to make for Larry.
No, I think he's highly involved in this, from what I heard. So I lived in Hawaii for a long time, and we used to fly over to Lanai in order to get our points up to keep our priority with Hawaiian Airlines. And that would be like, we'd take like 2 or 3 little trips to Lanai because it was dirt cheap because nobody goes to Lanai. And we would like fly a bunch of times and then have premier status again for the next year with free lounges, upgrades, all that stuff. So we used to go to Lanai a lot, and I used to go to the Nobu that was there, and I would talk, I'd talk to the staff, not above talking to billionaires or, the people working there. And it sounded always like he was pretty involved in even the details of how things are run, from what I heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. So he's got he finds pockets of passion to keep himself interested.
Yeah, exactly. I think these are like passion projects for him. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, when you're worth $186 billion, you're like, yeah, why not? Let's do this. I want to hang out there, and I get to hang out by Trump. Maybe he likes Trump. You never know.
Well, I think it's a little bit like the Robert Kiyosaki game, the cash flow. I don't know if you guys have ever played that. You have like the little rat race board in the middle, and then you get on the outside, and it's a fast track, and it's all these, like crazy, like buy a private island. Why not? It's a billionaire club. So.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Sorry, I was just literally wondering. I wonder how old Ellison is now. He's got to be in his 70s by now, right? I was going to look him up really quick. Larry Ellison. He's the what's it? Is it Sun Microsystems? Is that him? Larry Ellison, Sun Microsystems. Oracle. That's what it is.
You're right.
Yeah, it's Oracle. Let's see, how old is he? Not the whole 80 years old. He's like, yeah, I need something to do. I'm 80, I'm chilling. I want to go have some sushi over at my favorite place and spend that money. Okay.
Yeah. Huh. Okay, our next article from Yahoo Finance. The real estate world is fighting over secret listings and the future of how homes are sold. So they're talking about pocket listings. Basically, like pocket listings are properties that aren't sold on the MLS. So potentially, people aren't able to see those properties and make offers on them if they're not on the MLS, right? So buyers don't like that. But some sellers may not want to put them on the MLS. People that are famous or whatnot might want to keep their property out of the spotlight. So there's different reasons why a seller may want to go that way. But,
also it's agents. A lot of agents want to get both sides of the commission, so they do everything they can to kind of dissuade other agents for coming or showing the property. Like, not everyone is a very good advocate for their sellers. So I've definitely seen this many times. And, in some other countries, they allow that. Like in South Africa, they have what's called a sole mandate, where that seller wants both parts of the commission. They make the the real estate agent wants both parts. They make an agreement with the seller. They call it a sole mandate and basically say they're not going to split commission with any buyer's agents, where then you have to decide if you want to pay that out of your pocket or not. Now, that's kind of changed in the US, where now you can negotiate for whether you're going to pay a buyer's broker or not. And commissions are kind of all over the place from what I've seen. Since the laws changed with the, used to have a pretty standard 3-3 split, and sometimes it would be 2.5, but usually that would be standard, right? And now, I see agents wanting 5% to list, but you don't have to pay anything to the buyer's broker, but you may have buyers that don't want to pay out of pocket for their agent,
or
so
can't.
they look at your property, right? So it's interesting. I think this pocket listing we're going to start seeing more of with that change in the commission structure. In my opinion, it's something that I've been thinking about a little bit the last few days, actually, that I could see that happening. And honestly, as a investor, I kind of like pocket listings because, it gives you value for picking up the phone and calling around to different agents, getting on their lists, on their email lists, and the other, things are going on, that they'll pick up the phone and call you when there's something that meets your criteria that's available. So, I used to call that kind of thing dialing for dollars, right? Or along that. So investors, you can definitely benefit from that. But for average consumers, I think it definitely, having more information and knowledge, available information helps. But I don't know if you guys have noticed this. I've noticed over, the last 5 years or so that just less information is publicly available in a lot of markets than it used to be. I see less areas where sale prices are listed on things like Zillow, where you can go in as like an individual from the public and see what prices actually are selling for, things like that, where a lot of this publicly available data is starting to be hidden more and be harder to search for. So it's I think we're going to probably see more in that direction, and it makes it a good time though to be an investor, in my opinion.
Yeah. I know, like I'm brokered with eXp Realty. We've got kind of gotten ahead of this if it's going this way. Either way, so we've got a platform called eXp Exclusives.
Mm-hmm.
So we can list on there, and we've got a nationwide spread with that. So like any agent in eXp can see that, which is unique in this industry because the rules and the way things have been kind of laid out, you can promote a property within your office or franchise. So like a Keller Williams, as an example, may have like a big, a group, a franchise, and it may have 200-300 agents. But that's if you're an agent in that group, that's the only spread you can get. Like 200 other agents will see it, where we've got this nationwide reach.
Yeah.
So it's sharing it with a lot more people, and investors can look at it, or primary home buyers. But usually, they're distressed properties that aren't going to list on the MLS and sell to a primary home buyer. It needs too much work, so kind of interesting.
I mean, honestly, I think that the buyer broker model is kind of a broken model because, people are putting a lot of trust in that with this idea. You get a buyer broker, they're representing you, they're going to help you, they're going to show you what the value is, help you to. The problem always has been that when the buyer's broker is paid on commission, it's in their self-interest to have the highest price possible, right? So you end up with buyer brokers being the equivalent of used car salesmen, where it's like they want to sell for the highest price so they get the biggest chunk of that commission. And
that's a good point.
I've seen a lot of I feel like there's always this inherent conflict of interest there between trying to represent your buyers and wanting to make the most money possible yourself. The place where I've seen this a lot is in price reductions, right? That, if you're selling a property, typically you want to reduce the purchase price rather than give money back at close of escrow, because that reduces how much commissions are sold. But most buyers brokers will always submit to have amounts paid out for return at close of escrow so that they can get that added to their commission.
That's a great point. Yep. Yeah.
And it's little things like that can save you thousands and thousands of dollars, when you're buying a house or when you're selling a house, because you can negotiate for, rather than you giving me $10,000 back at close of escrow, why don't we do a $12,000 price reduction? And at the end of the day, it'll save you $1,000 also, right?
Yeah. Good points. Well, let's jump into our fun news item from Your Tango. 11 things Gen Z thinks are status symbols that mean nothing to older generations. I'll read them off. We can dive into them. Shopping at premium grocery stores like Whole Foods, thrifted or secondhand luxury items, vacations. Who doesn't love that? Apple iPhones, disposable income, high-end beauty products and tools, cosmetic procedures and Botox, workout classes, having a curated living space, social media worthy wellness habits, and being debt tolerant for lifestyle upgrades. Any comments on that?
I would definitely at the local grocery stores. We've got Vons, and then we've got Whole Foods, of course. And what's the other one that just opened nearby?
Sprouts.
No, it's not Sprouts. There is a Sprouts though. Sprouts is what's it called? Lazy Acres, but it's like Lazy Acres in Vons, and there's always the cute yoga crew, men and women that are at Lazy Acres, the 30-somethings. And
Yeah.
James, you may be a 30-something. I don't know. I'm a 50-something.
Way off.
Okay.
I'm in my 50s too.
Okay. But I'm like Vons, but I definitely notice it's like the old guard is at Vons. The young, hip, slick, and cool crew is definitely at Lazy Acres.
Interesting.
So I will confirm that. Yeah.
Never even heard of that.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is a worldwide trend, but again, I'd say it's nothing new to me because being from California, I'd say this kind of are like, the things from the last, 15, 20 years. This is what everybody does. So if you have the money to do it, you do it. So it's norm,
Yeah, I think the cosmetic procedures, the youth doesn't care and the old people do. Is that how that is? Gen Z things are status symbols. Oh, so the Gen Z, younger people are getting Botox and things like that, where perhaps the older crew are like, we don't care. Is that how I read
That's
that?
how I read it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of freaky. Definitely Southern Cal here in Encinitas. There's lots of younger women in their 20s who are getting Botox, and it's kind of freaky. It's like, why are you getting the duck lip thing already? Like, but I guess it's status. It's status. There you go. Now I know. Thank you.
Yeah.
So.
The Botox makes them look older. That's what they want. Thank you, Antonio. That's good.
I don't know. I think
Right.
I think this is all. I mean, that stuff has always kind of been status, though. So I just think you get, I don't think this is anything new, really. I think it's just like, a next generation. Like when you get to a certain point in life and you really are comfortable, the things that used to be status symbols stop being status symbols, and they're just life and normal. And that's, it's like you don't appreciate it even anymore. So I think sometimes it's, beneficial to get outside your comfort zone and go other places, travel, maybe not, just to, Cabo or the same kind of places that are very like clean and pristine and like you're used to, and, go interesting places where you get a refresh on, wow, life isn't like this everywhere you go, and see a different view. Like, we were in Uganda a few months ago, and, in these like little tiny villages where all the kids were walking home from school and running alongside like our car to like, try to like high five our kids. And it was, this amazing experience. And, I think most people's lives these days are, it's like you see the same things. Even if you travel internationally, you think you're like seeing something culturally different. But like I've started noticing nowadays, it's the same stores on like every fancy shopping street everywhere in the world. And it starts to be so cookie cutter. It's like, wow, it's the same shops in Budapest as I saw in Singapore, as in Honolulu, and it just gets so basic that
It's fully homogenized. Like it's all the same, fully homogenized. It's hard to get away now. It is hard to get away, isn't it? And not see the same.
So yeah, I mean the luxury symbols, aren't as much, I think, luxury symbols anymore. And, for younger generations, they're probably more aware of that and recognizing just these like little things that other people kind of take for granted, because those were the things that let you go to the Chanel, Dior, whatever else, and feel, like you're in place when you're there. But it's, being able to go to, the really nice grocery store and drink your $18 charcoal kale, cold pressed juice is, really more of a status symbol because you can spend money and don't care, right? So
I can't believe
Huh?
that stuff. It's crazy. Well, that covers the news portion of the show for this month. I'd like to thank our sponsors, United States Real Estate Investor Advertising, Accelerated Capital at acceleratemycapital.com, Universe Media Publishing at universemediapublishing.com, and of course, thanks to our guests, Crystal Stranger and Mischa Z. We'll just go with that. Why don't you guys let people know how they connect with you if you want to do that? We'll start with Crystal.
LinkedIn is a great spot to connect with me on there, or you can shoot me an email. It's crystal@optictax.com.
Great. Mischa, oh, you're muted, or it's not working. Yeah, it shows muted.
You're muted.
There we go. I'm unmuted now. Here I am. So yes, you can find me on LinkedIn, Mischa Z, and then you can also go to guestingguide.com, where I have a free download on how to execute a profitable and successful podcast tour if you want to get on podcasts like this and spread your message far and wide.
Oh, fantastic. Very good. Very good. Thanks, guys. Again, I'm your host, James Brown. Feel free to connect with me by going to linktree/partner with James Brown. And if you want help with your investing journey, book time with me to see how we can work together by going to jamesbrownrealestate.com/coaching. Also, huge thanks to our founder and producer, Antonio Holman with United States Real Estate Investor. Follow and subscribe to This Month in Real Estate Investing at thismonthinrealestateinvesting.com or your favorite podcast app. And if you run across any interesting news, events, or have suggestions for expert guests like we had today, feel free to share by emailing Antonio at UnitedStatesRealEstateInvestor.com. And remember, when one door closes, another door opens to financial freedom. Thanks, guys.